The Man from Snowy River. There was movement at the station, for the word had passed around that the colt from Old Regret had got away and had joined the wild bush horses. He was worth £1,000, so all the cracks had gathered to the fray. All the tried and noted riders from the stations near and far had mustered at the homestead overnight, for the bushmen love hard riding where the wild bush horses are, and the stock horse snuffs the battle with delight. There was Harrison, who made his pile when Pardon won the cup, the old man with his hair as white as snow. But few could ride beside him when his blood was fairly up. He would go wherever horse and man could go. And Clancy of the Overflow came down to lend a hand. No better horseman ever held the reins, for never horse could throw him while the saddle girths would stand. He learned to ride while droving on the plains. And one was there, a stripling on a small and weedy beast. He was something like a racehorse undersized, with a touch of team or pony, 3 parts thoroughbred at least, and such as are by mountain horsemen prized. He was hard and tough and wiry, just the sort that won't say die. There was courage in his quick, impatient tread, and he bore the badge of gameness in his bright and fiery eye and the proud and lofty carriage of his head. But still so slight and weedy, one would doubt his power to stay, and the old man said, "That horse will never do for a long and tiring gallop. Lad, you'd better stop away. Those hills are far too rough for such as you." So he waited, sad and wistful. Only Clancy stood his friend. "I think we ought to let him come," he said. "I warrant he'll be with us when he's wanted at the end, for both his horse and he are mountain bred. He hails from Snowy River up by Kosciuszko's side, where the hills are twice as steep and twice as rough, where a horse's hoofs strike firelight from the flintstones every stride. The man that holds his own is good enough. And the Snowy River riders on the mountains make their home, where the river runs those giant hills between. I have seen full many horsemen since I first commenced to roam, but nowhere yet such horsemen have I seen." So he went. They found the horses by the big mimosa clump. They raced away towards the mountain's brow, and the old man gave his orders. "Boys, go at them from the jump. No use to try for fancy riding now. And Clancy, you must wheel them. Try and wheel them to the right. Ride boldly, lad, and never fear the spills, for never yet was rider that could keep the mob in sight if once they gain the shelter of those hills." So Clancy rode to wheel them. He was racing on the wing where the best and boldest riders take their place, and he raced his stock horse past them, and he made the rangers ring with the stock whip as he met them face to face. Then they halted for a moment while he swung that dreaded lash. But they saw their well-loved mountain full in view, and they charged beneath the stock whip with a sharp and sudden dash, and off into the mountain's scrub they flew. Then fast the horsemen followed, where the gorges deep and black resounded to the thunder of their tread, and the stock whips woke the echoes, and they fiercely answered back from cliffs and crags that beetled overhead. And upward, ever upward, the wild horses held their way, where mountain ash and Kurrajong grew wide, and the old man muttered fiercely, "We may bid the mob good day, no man can hold them down the other side." When they reached the mountain summit, even Clancy took a pull. It well might make the boldest hold their breath. The wild hop scrub grew thickly, and the hidden ground was full of wombat holes, and any slip was death. But the man from Snowy River let the pony have his head, and he swung his stock whip round and gave a cheer, and he raced him down the mountain like a torrent down its bed, while the others stood and watched in very fear. He sent the flintstones flying, but the pony kept its feet. He cleared the fallen timber in his stride, and the man from Snowy River never shifted in his seat. It was grand to see that mountain horseman ride. Through the stringy barks and saplings, on the rough and broken ground, down the hillside at a racing pace he went, and he never drew the bridle till he landed safe and sound at the bottom of that terrible descent. He was right among the horses as they climbed the farther hill, and the watchers on the mountain standing mute, saw him ply the stock whip fiercely. He was right among them still as he raced across the clearing in pursuit. Then they lost him for a moment, where 2 mountain gullies met in the ranges, but a final glimpse reveals on a dim and distant hillside the wild horses racing yet, with the man from Snowy River at their heels. And he ran them single-handed till their sides were white with foam. He followed like a bloodhound on their track, till they halted, cowed and beaten. Then he turned their heads for home, and all alone and unassisted brought them back. But his hardy mountain pony, he could scarcely raise a trot. He was blood from hip to shoulder from the spur. But his pluck was still undaunted, and his courage fiery hot. for never yet was mountain horse a cur. And down by Kosciuszko, where the pine-clad ridges raise their torn and rugged battlements on high, where the air is clear as crystal and the white stars fairly blaze at midnight in the cold and frosty sky, and where around the overflow the reed beds sweep and sway to the breezes and the rolling plains are wide, a man from Snowy River is a household word today, and the stockmen tell the story of his ride. Said Hanrahan. "We'll all be ruined," said Hanrahan, in accents most forlorn, outside the church ere Mass began one frosty Sunday morn. The congregation stood about, coat collars to the ears, and talked of stock and crops and drought, as it had done for years. "It's looking crook," said Daniel Croak. "Bedad, it's crook, my lad, for never since the banks went broke has season's been so bad." "It's dry, all right," said young O'Neill, with which astute remark he squatted down upon his heel and chewed a piece of bark. And so around the chorus ran, "It's keeping dry, no doubt." "We'll all be ruined," said Hanrahan, "before the year is out. The crops are done. You'll have your work to save one bag of grain. From here way out to back of Burke they're singing out for rain. They're singing out for rain," he said, "and all the tanks are dry." The congregation scratched its head and gazed around the sky. "There won't be grass, in any case, enough to feed an ass. There's not a blade on Casey's place as I came down to Mass." "If rain don't come this month," said Dan, and cleared his throat to speak. "We'll all be ruined," said Hanrahan, "if rain don't come this week." A heavy silence seemed to steal on all at this remark, and each man squatted on his heel and chewed a piece of bark. "We want an inch of rain, we do," O'Neill observed at last. But Croak maintained we wanted 2 to put the danger past. "If we don't get 3 inches, man, or 4 to break this drought, we'll all be ruined," said Hanrahan, "before the year is out." In God's good time down came the rain, and all the afternoon on iron roof and window pane it drummed a homely tune. And through the night it pattered still, and lightsome, gladsome elves on dripping spout and windowsill kept talking to themselves. It pelted, pelted all day long, a singing at its work, till every heart took up the song way out to back of Burke, and every creek a banker ran, and dams filled over top. "We'll all be ruined," said Hanrahan, "if this rain doesn't stop." And stop it did in God's good time. And spring came into fold, a mantle o'er the hills sublime of green and pink and gold. And days went by on dancing feet with harvest hopes immense, and laughing eyes beheld the wheat nid nodding o'er the fence. And oh, the smiles on every face, as happy lad and lass through grass knee-deep on Casey's place went riding down to Mass. While round the church in close genteel discoursed the men of mark, and each man squatted on his heel and chewed his piece of bark. "There'll be bushfires for sure, me man, there will without a doubt. We'll all be ruined," said Hanrahan, "before the year is out." Ballad of the Drover. Across the stony ridges, across the rolling plain, young Harry Dale the drover comes riding home again. And well his stock horse bears him, and light of heart is he, and stoutly his old pack horse is trotting by his knee. Up Queensland way with cattle he's travelled regions vast, and many months have vanished since home folks saw him last. He hums a song of someone he hopes to marry soon, and hobble chains and campware keep jingling to the tune. Beyond the hazy dado against the lower skies, and yon blue line of ranges, the station homestead lies, and thitherward the drover jogs through the lazy noon, while hobble chains and campware are jingling to a tune. An hour has filled the heavens with storm clouds inky black. At times the lightning trickles around the drover's track. But Harry pushes onward, his horse's strength he tries, in hope to reach the river before the flood shall rise. The thunder, pealing o'er him, goes rumbling down the plain, and sweet on thirsty pastures beats fast the plashing rain. Then every creek and gully sends forth its tribute flood. The river runs a banker, all stained with yellow mud. Now Harry speaks to Rover, the best dog on the plains, and to his hardy horses, and strokes their shaggy manes. We've breasted bigger rivers when floods were at their height, nor shall this gutter stop us from getting home tonight. The thunder growls a warning, the blue forked lightnings gleam. The drover turns his horses to swim the fatal stream. But oh, the flood runs stronger than e'er it ran before. The saddle horse is failing, and only halfway o'er. When flashes next the lightning, the flood's grey breast is blank. A cattle dog and pack horse are struggling up the bank. But in the lonely homestead, the girl shall wait in vain. He'll never pass the stations in charge of stock again. The faithful dog a moment lies panting on the bank, then plunges through the current to where his master sank. And round in circles he fights with failing strength, till gripped by wilder waters he fails and sinks at length. Across the flooded lowlands and slopes of sodden loam, the pack-horse struggles bravely to take dumb tidings home. And mud-stained, wet and weary, he goes by rock and tree, with clanging chains and tinware, all sounding eerily.